This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm news anchor Sarah Harnisch. With me today, Alliance Defending Freedom's Senior Counsel, Matt Sharp. We're talking transgender sports. 2 states defended their laws that protect girls' sports before the U.S. Supreme Court this month, Idaho and West Virginia. Alliance Defending Freedom co-counseled in both of those cases. Tell me what happened in West Virginia versus BPJ and Little versus Hecox.
Both of these cases involve state laws that ensure men cannot take away spots on the team or championships from female athletes, basically setting an eligibility rule that men cannot compete in women's sports. Well, shortly after these laws were passed, the ACLU challenged them, arguing that they were unconstitutional or violated Title IX. Those cases made their way to the U.S. Supreme Court, where ADF was honored to stand with Idaho and West Virginia to defend these laws, to defend fairness in women's sports, and to ensure that young women in these states never need to fear losing out on equal opportunities in sports to male athletes. 27 states have laws on the books that protect girls. CBS News is reporting it looks positive for girls' rights, and that would be a massive blow to the transgender movement. Give me a play-by-play of what happened in the courtroom in favor of female athletes. Well, we saw very early on some great questioning from the justices, getting to the heart of the flaws in the ACLU's logic and arguments in this case. For example, there was a great exchange where Justice Alito was pushing the ACLU to acknowledge states can have separate teams for men and women. Justice Alito then pushed further and say, well, don't you need to have a proper definition of sex and male and female to be able to apply and enforce those policies? And that's where the ACLU stumbled and said, we can't provide that definition for you today. That's part of the problem of their argument. They are trying to redefine sex, what we know to be male and female based on biology, to embrace this concept of gender identity, that your subjective sense of self, how you identify, is what you are rather than your biology. But we know in sports it's biology that matters, and that's why we were encouraged to see the court go back to this line of questioning, go back to those physiological differences between men and women, and why those differences matter in sports, and therefore states can step in, pass laws to make sure that women's sporting opportunities are not lost out to male athletes. Justice Kavanaugh said, quote, "The growth of girls' sports the last 50 years is inspiring. Allowing transgender students to participate will reverse that success." That is a strong statement in your favor. What's your reaction? Justice Kavanaugh was absolutely right, and we need to look no further than the stories that emerge from young women that have lost out on opportunities because of male athletes. For example, in our Connecticut case, where we're representing several female athletes challenging bad policies, 2 male athletes captured 16 championships, dozens of medals and other opportunities and records, and over 90 instances where those 2 male athletes took away opportunities to advance in competition or get on a spot on the podium from young women. It's even worse in West Virginia, where a single male athlete displaced over 400 young women in sports, and over 1,000 times where that male athlete took an opportunity away from a young woman. We see how even just 1 or 2 males being allowed to compete in women's sports has a devastating impact on women's opportunities. But it goes beyond the playing field, because not only does it impact your spot on a team or your spot on a podium, but this same principle is resulting in men going into women's locker rooms and restrooms where these young women are being sexually harassed by males. That's a tragedy. It should never happen, and that's why we have to make sure that we protect women's sports, protect women's privacy, and ultimately reaffirm the truth that we are created male and female. Most Supreme Court rulings are handed down in June. If the justices side with Idaho and West Virginia, what would happen next? Well, the immediate outcome would be that both the Idaho and West Virginia laws and those of the 25 other states that have also passed similar Save Women's Sports laws would be upheld, allowed to go into effect. And that's going to be a huge win for hundreds of thousands of female athletes that now know that their spot on the team, their place on the podium, their access to sporting scholarships is secure and not at threat of a male coming along and taking those away. But I think we have to look forward to the next step. We still have 23 other states that don't have Save Women's Sports laws. some of which have bad policies that allow men on women's teams. And that's why Alliance Defending Freedom is going to continue to bring these cases, like our case in Connecticut, like our case in Minnesota, where we are challenging the bad policies. We ultimately want to see that every young woman in America, no matter where she lives, has a fair and level playing field guaranteed to her, the right to compete without men taking away those opportunities.
Do you think that this is a shifting of the weights in the balance with the transgender movement? Would it have the possibility of impacting bathrooms in facilities, maybe people that are trying to save their jobs that are taking a stand, teachers in the classroom?
I think we're definitely seeing public wins shift against the harms and radical nature of gender ideology. We know that this ideology, it doesn't just impact sports, but as you said, it impacts privacy in restrooms and locker rooms. It's impacting teachers and others who are being told that they have to use inaccurate names and pronouns. So we are seeing the public turn against this because they see the harms it causes to countless good Americans, to countless men, women, children, and others that have been harmed by this ideology. So we hope that this shows a strong pattern, just like we saw previously, the court uphold laws that say we're not going to put puberty blockers and dangerous hormones into vulnerable young children. Also, we're going to protect women's sports, and we want to see those protections to women's private spaces, locker rooms, restrooms, overnight lodging, and ultimately make sure that no American is punished, harassed, or in any way loses an opportunity because of gender ideology.
Getting twin cases of this magnitude before the U.S. Supreme Court is a huge accomplishment. It's an exclamation point on the work that you guys do. How did ADF feel walking out of that courtroom?
We were very encouraged. The justices asked great questions, calling into focus what this case is really about, the flaws of gender ideology, the flaws in the ACLU's arguments, but more importantly, the young women that are at the heart of this case. Women like Maddie Kenyon and so many others that have been for years speaking out against men coming into their sports and taking away opportunities. They were vindicated. Their cause was heard before the highest court in the land. We saw hundreds of people show up at a rally outside of the Supreme Court standing with them, and we're hearing more and more women speaking out on this issue, boldly saying we are not going to allow our opportunities to be taken away. So I'm not only encouraged by what I saw in the courtroom, but I'm even more encouraged by what we're seeing in our culture as more and more voices are speaking out, and I think that's ultimately how we're going to get lasting, permanent change to put gender ideology to rest and to secure fairness in women's sports for generations to come.
Learn more at adflegal.org.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.